Good evening and welcome to For the Record. Fiji and the region have been under the spotlight for just over a week now, with the joint parliamentary assembly of the ACP and the EU, and even before that there were meetings and discussions being held on a regional and international level. To talk about Pacific regionalism and the way forward, we have in studio with us tonight the Secretary General of the Pacific Island Forum, Dame Meg Taylor. Dame Meg, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. We're also joined by our regular panelist on the show, Joshua Tuere from the Fiji Sun. We'll get right into it. Since the time that you've taken up office, you've sort of been on this campaign to reinvigorate the Pacific Island from what I can see, and to bring about reunity in the Pacific community. Is that something that you are actively working on, and is that something that you're struggling with?
Well, first of all, good evening. I haven't looked at it as a campaign. I think what I've really looked at it as a way of understanding the issues of every member state and trying to build an organisation that is committed to a broader or a deeper regionalism, where we have dialogue, and a rich dialogue about the issues that we face as a people. It has been at times of concern to me when I first arrived that Fiji wasn't fully participating, and I knew the value of Fiji's contribution over the years. That has changed in the last couple of months, and that's been a very positive step forward. I've made a big effort, because I think it's the right thing to do, is to go and visit all the member states. I now visited 13 countries, and I have 3 more before the leaders will meet in September in Papua New Guinea. And it's been a very important time for me to really learn about the issues that are so different in various countries. But for me, coming from a large country in the Pacific, was a lot of resources and a terrestrial boundary that is huge. Then visiting Kiribati and Tuvalu, I've had to really think through the challenges that people face living on these atolls, in terms of the climate issues, in terms of population and opportunities for their people. So I think it's a genuine effort to try and build and hold the Pacific family together.
We'll come back to the point of Fiji in a bit, but you spoke about regionalism. Now, there's a new plan that the forum is working on. As we speak, the forum, for the first time, is actually taking submissions from governments, members of the public, CSOs, anyone and everyone who's interested. Mm-hmm. The idea behind this new plan, if I may say, is the previous Pacific plan didn't quite work. Are you trying to sort of reinvigorate it?
I don't know if you'll recall, but it was Sumakere Marauta, the former Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, that was asked by the leaders to review the Pacific Plan, because the Pacific Plan was actually driven by officials and not by the political leadership. And at any one time, there'd be 37 issues that would be brought to the leaders at their leaders' meeting to consider. Well, that was problematic in itself, because how are you going to have serious debate around 37 issues when you've only got a day of a closed meeting? So the framework for Pacific regionalism was to look at that, and Sumakere and his team consulted right across the Pacific with governments, civil society, academics, churches. And it was very clear that the message that people said, we do want a regional organisation, but we want to be more involved. So inclusivity is a really important aspect of the framework for Pacific regionalism. Our job is to implement it. This is the first year, so there's going to be hiccups. But we're moving slowly, or steadily, and already we have something like, I understand, 35 or so submissions that have coming in from institutions, individuals, right across the region. This this specialist subcommittee, which has representatives from Polynesia, Melanesia, Micronesia, civil society, private sector, Australia, New Zealand is one block, and I chair that, will meet again in July. They will run a series of tests of whether it really, these issues that have been raised meet a regional test, you know, because regionalism does mean that a national government has to consider, am I going to relinquish some of my sovereignty for the good of the group? And whether is there duplication in the implementation of these issues. So there's a series of tests that will be applied. All the submissions that come to us will be made public. They'll be on our website so everybody knows what those issues are. It will be for the specialist subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of the Forum Officials Committee, that will make that decision. Once they've made that decision, then the Secretariat's role is to then prepare the materials for the Forum Officials Committee before issues that have been selected go to the leaders. Now, what we hope and require of the leaders is that they will make a choice of no more than 5, and then they have to put their political will right behind these issues because they are regional issues. And then after that, they will have a conversation with the post-forum dialogue partners, and then Secretariat's role will be to then work with the crop agencies and other institutions to see how we're going to proceed with the implementation, and then how we're going to account for this back to the leaders but to the public. Now, the fundamental aspect of this is that it's going to require a much deeper and richer dialogue at the leadership level, a political commitment, and it's going to require, over time, a shift in the development paradigm, where the leaders of the region say, on regional issues, this is what we believe are the imperatives and this is what the issues are, and our development partners, if you're going to put money into regional issues, support what we want rather than defining issues that you may think that we want. And I think this is going to be a time of evolution. It's not going to happen overnight.
And on that note, I'm afraid we have to take a break. There was a very interesting point that you brought up, which I'd like to dig into,
Yeah.
but that's going to happen after the break. We'll be right back.
Good evening and welcome to For the Record. Our topic tonight is around a child's game, a board game of sorts which has swept the world and is also emerging in Fiji, has actually been in Fiji for the past few months and is presenting some real problems. I'm talking about, of course, the Charlie Charlie game. If you're not too familiar with it, it's a board game where children use 2 pencils to supposedly summon demons and spirits. What started off as a harmless game around the world has actually become a problem for parents, for school administrators, and for the children playing the game themselves. There have been reports of children presenting physical injuries after playing this game and supposedly seeing spirits or seeing demons. Now, we have established over the last days and weeks that there is no truth to this. It is in fact all fake. But we are now in a situation where children, having played these games, are suffering some sort of psychological impact, at least. To speak about this game and the effects of it and what problems it may pose, we have in studio with us tonight the Minister for Education, Dr. Mahendra Reddy, and a consultant psychiatrist, Dr. Balram Pandit. Gentlemen, thank you for being here with us tonight. Dr. Reddy, you've had to come on this show because you, as Education Minister, are presented with a problem where children in schools around Fiji are playing this Charlie Charlie game, supposedly trying to summon demons and spirits. And there's now a situation on your hands where you're trying to gauge how many children are playing this game and what sort of problems it's presenting in the schools. What sort of situation do you have on your hands?
you said, Edwin, you said students are playing. I'm saying students were playing, first of all. And secondly, what we have noticed is that it is happening at the center and closer to the center, meaning urban area or closer to urban area, or between urban and rural, meaning basically meaning how far or how much exposure internet is having on students. So as you reach more rural area, interior or maritime, you'll find it was totally absent, which means it was a massive internet scam to get to students, to access students, the younger generation. So it happened over the last 4 weeks, including this week. So it's a recent thing, and we found out around 2.5 weeks into it. So we're getting right on top of it to ensure that all grounds are covered, and this is basically brought to a zero in schools. But there's more to it. There's a bigger thing behind this.
All right, well, we'll try and get to what that bigger thing is. But because we're talking about the effects on children, Dr. Balram, of course, we've been having discussions. You spoke about the changes that can occur in an adolescent who's too deeply involved with this game. What are the risks?
Well, there are various risks. See, adolescence phase itself is a phase, you can call it make in progress phase, or adolescent itself, adolescents can be described as work in progress. So there are various things happening there. I mean, they are for their autonomy. They are looking for their autonomy in making decision. Then, sorry.
That's okay. You may continue.
Okay. Then,
when you say they're looking for their autonomy, are you saying they're trying to find their own identity? Is that what you're referring to? I mean, how does that relate to the game?
Okay, no, I mean, this adolescence phase itself is a phase where it's exploratory phase, right? So they explore a lot of things. This relationship, this phase is a phase where interpersonal relationship, especially the relationship with the peer group, deepens, right? And the autonomy in decision making grows. And as they are more curious, so if anything new comes in this phase, they would like to learn about it, they would like to further explore about it. So definitely when this came, this game, Charlie game came this year, and of course this game became a hit in this year, I mean 2015. People say that it started from Mexico, but there are evidences that it started from Spanish countries. I mean, there are other countries which speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. So it started from Spanish countries as well. So this phase is so tender that it can, if this phase is not properly constructed, then a proper personality will not grow. A more integrated personality will not evolve. So there are chances that these people, these children may develop some personality disorder, one thing. Then this can lead to a sort of attention-seeking behavior as well. As I was talking yesterday, in attention-seeking behavior, what happens, like if 4 or 5 students have played that game, and some of them have really witnessed the demon, they were in communication, say.
That's what they come back and say, that I've seen demons.
Yeah, and out of these 4 students, say 1 or 2 students could not communicate with this, with the demon. Then in order to prove that I was able to communicate later on, what they will, consciously or actually it happens subconsciously later on. That's why we call it attention-seeking behavior, or later on it is also called a sort of conversion disorder. But in this context, attention-seeking behavior would be more appropriate. So somehow they inflict injury, and subconsciously they inflict injury on their own body, own body, and they ultimately they come to hospitals as well. Today I was talking in CWM, and our nursing staffs have reported that few students have reported here as well in CWM.
So we're seeing cases, but do we know
We are
if
seeing
this
few
is,
cases.
do we know if this is directly related to the game?
I mean, I haven't, since my rotation is in community these days. So the nursing staff told me this morning that, I mean, 1 or 2 students were playing this game, this kind of cases. I was just talking about this, and nursing staff told me that, I mean, they have seen this kind of thing, cases.
All right. Well,
So-
these could be reported incidents. Let's call them reported incidents because we'd rather have it verified with
There are
facts.
few other things, like it can lead to some perceptual problem or thought problem, where you were talking as, I mean, they were reporting that they were hearing voices, what we call auditory hallucination. Sometimes they see the faces, and then it can lead to some addiction, I mean, sort of addictive behavior as
All
well.
right. We'll pause here, Dr. Balram. We have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll have more discussions when we come back from the break. Good evening and welcome back to For the Record. We're talking with representatives of the Fiji Children's Heart Foundation about children in Fiji living with congenital heart disease and other heart diseases, and what is going to be done in the future. I suppose that's my next question. What do we need to do in the future to be able to support these children and their families? Michael?
Well, for now, what will happen is, as we were speaking yesterday at the hospital, we will continue to follow up on these children who have undergone surgery or are undergoing surgery. We will identify their needs, when they need to come back to the hospital for further reviews and all that. We also have some very long-term goals and plans as well, as far as education and other needs are concerned for the children. Shireen also has been speaking with Dr. Reapi and the team at the CWM Hospital. We will create a database for all of our children, get contact details of these parents, and we will continue to follow up on the needs and the requirements for the children.
If we talk about statistics, how many children in Fiji would have heart diseases right now?
So there was a study done in 2008 by a doctor at CWM, and it was part of her studies, and she found out that it was 5 out of 1,000 children born in Fiji suffer from congenital heart defects. And we have 20,000 children born each year, so that would make it around 110 babies each year born with congenital heart defects.
Is that high? Is that an alarming rate? I mean, even one, I suppose, is still too many.
Absolutely. It's in alignment sort of with the international level. It's in fact a little bit lower, so it's a good indicator that hopefully Fijian babies are a little bit healthier than babies elsewhere, but it's still a very alarming level, of course.
And a lot of these, as you said, are discovered post-mortem. What sort of advice would you give to parents, and what sort of symptoms would they need to look out for, so that their child doesn't die from heart disease?
Absolutely. So the symptoms are various, but the most common symptoms is basically poor circulation. So if the baby is ever turning blue, for example, a lot of children with congenital heart defects have trouble. The blood doesn't get to the limbs and to a lot of the fingers and the nose and the ears, so they start going blue. Unfortunately, they also have breathing difficulties because the heart and the lungs are best friends, so when something happens, the other one is affected. So they start breathing either very, very fast at times or very, very slow. They don't feel like eating most of the time. They sleep very poorly. And Michael can also tell you a little bit about that, unfortunately, from his experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to bring that up. I mean, you have very personal experience with congenital heart disease.
Yes.
And that, I guess, has made you a champion for the Children's Heart Foundation and all the awareness you do You even did a 5-day walk around Vitilevu.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about what actually got you into this.
17 years ago, I lost my son. Actually, he was born, he had a normal delivery. And as Sherin indicated earlier, that it was only after 3 months then we recognized a few symptoms and we knew that our son was sick. So we went for a medical checkup, a private doctor, and he said that the baby was perfectly all right. It was part of his growth to be turning blue, short of breath, unable to sleep. The baby was crying a lot, excessive sweating, heavy breathing, and so forth. So, as a father, I wasn't really satisfied with those results that I obtained from the first doctor. So we opted for a second opinion, and we went right up to Nosori, and that's when we were told that my son had a heart problem. Then we came down to CWM Hospital, and then we were fortunate that we were attended by a lot of doctors, and then they confirmed that my son had 2 holes in the heart. And then immediately after that, he was admitted into the PICU ward, and we made CWM Hospital our home for 3 months. We actually slept there. I went to work from there partially till that very last moment that he took his breath, and I saw all that. So I was actually reading this book, which was given to us at Pernix Fiji by our Chief Executive Officer and our President, Mr. Nidal. And as I was reading this book, I actually noted this down. On the 30th of November last year, I had a vision, I heard a voice, and I saw my son's face, that I should do something for the children who are suffering from heart problem. And the 2 words that came, that I thought of, or the vision that I had, is to walk for life. And the voice that I heard is that, Dad, you should walk for life to save children. And then it was just a couple of seconds that I had that vision. And then I shared that vision with 3 people. First was my immediate supervisor, Mr. Bill Adams, and I told him exactly what the vision was and what I intended to do. Second person was a very best friend of mine, and I shared that with her as well. And thirdly, another good friend, Mr. Ray, and these people came on board and they really supported me. And then I was looking for a recipient, a organization who could receive these funds and channel it for the good use. And then I approached organizations like Red Cross and others. And then I was told that there was no Children's Heart Foundation in Fiji. But then as I visited CWM Hospital to check on the logistics of my work, and then I was then informed at the hospital that we had a Children's Heart Foundation. And then immediately after that, I met Sherin, and we discussed about the plans for the walk, and then we got the ball rolling from there. I also wanted to thank Minister Rosie Akbar, which she came on board after sharing that vision with her. I made a presentation to her in the ministry, in her office, and from the word go, she has always been behind this initiative. And my employer, Pernix Fiji Limited, and Pernix Group as well, they have been behind this, and many other sponsors who actually came on board. So on the 24th of March this year, I walked around Vitilevu, which was 510 kilometers, and it was walking and partially cycling, and that took me 5 days. And the intention of that walk was to again raise funds for children who needed financial assistance for medical treatment like the one that we are seeing now. We were also looking at counseling services in the future as well, and providing some sort of financial assistance to the parents who may require, in terms of transport and other meals as well at the hospital.
All right, we'll pick that up again, but right now we have to take another break. We'll be right back. Back to For the Record, we're talking about the Fiji Sevens team. Jay, with all that we've achieved so far, we are the world champions, but how much more work is left before we get guaranteed gold in the Olympics? It's a tough question.
It is a very tough question because there's never ever a guarantee. We've seen, obviously, the talk at the moment is about the rise of the US team. They've got a big advantage of having the pool of players to choose from, so to speak. They can go to track meets and find the next Perry Baker or Carla Niles. And then obviously in the women's, the same sort of thing applies. But for me, the thing that these nations don't have is just the natural talent that exists here in Fiji. Fijians are built for rugby, which is why you're looking, even at Super Rugby and in France, the number of Fijian boys competing at a high level, I think per capita would be number one. So as I guess I'm biased in the sense that I believe that we will always have that advantage over other nations. It's just a case of harnessing it, as I said earlier, polishing that diamond. And I feel quietly confident that we'll certainly be there or thereabouts in Rio, and hopefully with a gold medal hanging around the boys' neck.
Rohit?
Speaking of Rio, Semi Kunatani, you've known him for some time now. He started with you guys with the Novosa Rugby Union, the Yamazia 7s team. He's opted for 15s now, though he'll be back for Rio. But do you think him joining the code of 15s rugby and coming back to 7s rugby, we've seen that with Samisoni Viriviri, though he's playing well, but we can say that he's not at what we saw him before. Do you think that might affect Kunatani's performance in 7s rugby?
Short answer would be, I'm sure there are chances of that happening. But I'm quietly confident, again, that Semi has got the mindset and also the inner strength to make sure that he comes back at the top of his game for the 7s. And it's also pre-planned, so to speak. He knows what he's going over there to achieve. He's got a goal. He's very goal-driven. As we've seen in 18 months, he's gone from being the captain of Yamathea to now being one of 3 potential World Series Players of the Year, which will be announced on November 1st after the Rugby World Cup. I believe that he'll come back as good as he is right now. Obviously with a little bit more experience under the belt, having played at the top level in France. And his aim has always been he wants to win gold. And when he sets his mind to it, I pity the person that gets in his way.
One of the keys to the success as well has been leadership in the team, and I think Osea Kolinisau in many people's minds has really been the translator and the implementer of Ben's vision in the team, and I think he commands a lot of respect as well.
A silent force of sorts.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. There's within that team, within that brotherhood, I guess you'd call it now, those boys are family, and Oscar is obviously the leader, the dad of the family, and all of those boys that are carrying responsibilities. And I know Ice is a big leader also on and off the field. Semi is a quiet sort of leads by example in a sense. But yeah, the talent that we have is second to none. And in regards to your point, Oscar is just doing a fantastic job relaying some of those messages. I know sometimes it can get lost in translation. When Ben's saying things in English, sometimes the boys might go, "What did he say?" So Oscar can translate. But yeah, fantastic boys.
One of the things I've noticed is that, as you said, we've always had this talent, but this brotherhood hasn't always been there. The last time I would say that we had a team that was this close was when Waisale Serevi was player and eventually captain and coach.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I guess part of it could be the, if you listen to audio of previous seasons gone by, the commentators would often make, and there's another new player in the Fiji, and a new face, and there's so much chopping and changing. So it would be very hard to have that core. But you look at this team, you've got the existing core, and then every now and then there'll just be a new one that just slots in based on form. And I guess that's the real foundation that's been laid for this team. And obviously with Ben having the vision of, it's not just about this series. Obviously they wanted to secure their place in Rio, and they've done that, and they've won the series. But it was always with the goal of gold in 2016. So he's really got this strong core of players, and anyone that joins it is joining a team culture, which they have to buy into.
Apart from playing the HSBC series, training the players, having a routine and a regime, you need an overall plan as you mentioned, for the Olympics? I mean, what sort of technicalities are we talking about leading up to the Olympics?
I guess for Ben, the best person to answer that question would be Ben. I guess I could try and give a guess as to what's in his mind, but I guess it's more of the same. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. He'll want to keep the continual challenges for the boys, you know, not just being sort of a lay down misère that they're going to be in the team. They have to prove it. They have to keep playing at the highest level. He'll keep visiting the sevens tournaments around the country. Who knows? There might be someone else out there that could sneak their way into this team. They've still got to play the series next year for 2015-16, and you know there's still, as I say, a lot of water to pass under the bridge.
Mm-hmm. Right.
After the victory against South Africa at the Cup quarterfinals of the London Sevens, I read on World Rugby, Ben had to remind the boys that it was meant to be fun because of how emotional they were after the victory. How big of a motivation should this be to the local boys who haven't made it to the team yet? And like Ben always says, doors are always open for them to join the national squad.
Well, I guess it's the old thing about having something to aim for. And you know, any of the boys that were on the fringes, if they saw the celebrations that took place, I'm sure they'd love to be a part of that. And it just means working that a little bit extra harder, you know, going for the extra road run or going to the gym or just doing that little bit of extra to get above that next person that wants that position. Yeah, so I guess it's just setting a goal and working towards it.
One of the things Ben has brought on board as well is just his concern for player welfare, especially in the vetting of contracts and offers. Has that really helped shape the culture of the team as well? And sort of the loss of players, has that really helped retain players?
I'd just say short answer is yes. Knowing that your coach is caring about your welfare is very important. I know from Semi's point of view, he's had lots of conversations with Ben about his future, and I know that the decision made was with Ben's blessing. So yeah, the short answer is it makes a big difference. But you know, for us within the new FRU board, that's one of the things that we're very conscious of. You know, I shared with the board via email a little while ago a quote from David Campisi, which John used this week about that rugby's easy. Take care of the players and they'll take care of the rest. And we're very much a player-focused board. We want to obviously prove and show to the boys how much we care about them and their welfare, which is why this week we're so happy that they're able to get what was owed to them. And I saw Ben Ryan's tweet about the same message, that he's just so happy that the boys got their bonuses.
And that actually brings me to my next point about the FRU board and its outlook on sevens rugby. But before we get to that, we have to go for another break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're pretty much about to wrap up the show tonight. We've been talking about the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, or please do tell me if I'm crossing the line, but you yourself are gay.
Yeah.
You're not just an activist, but
Yeah.
you are openly homosexual.
Yeah.
That must have been difficult for you to come out, to tell your parents, your friends, and tonight tell Fiji that you are a homosexual.
Yeah, I think I'm finally out of the closet now. Like I went to a very conservative school, and it was run by a faith-based organization. And because back then it was a very, very sensitive issue, and there was zero discussions on LGBT rights, so even sex itself, or any sexuality. So like I grew up in a small community in Nassori as well, outside on the rural Nassori, and because I knew that I was different, and then I had no one to talk to, and there was no support services that were accessible to me at the time, and I fell into depression, and So that took like many years of therapy, and thankfully like I had support from my family. Like not everyone is lucky as I was, but I had support from my family, and I was able to come out of depression and become an activist. Yeah.
All these things we've been talking about tonight, the discrimination, the abuse, the isolation and ostracization, you've actually lived through it.
Yes, I have, yeah. And my colleagues in the movement, they've been through even much worse. Yeah.
Shamima, why don't we have more people like Chris?
I think because there are quite a few of them. I'm actually, as a human rights activist, I am like so happy and that there are many groups that are now addressing the issue within the LGBTQI community, and they are coming out slowly. But we have to provide an environment that is conducive to them coming out. And not being abused on the street and so on, you know. So and that is the reason. Everything we have talked about, that people are not yet confident to come out, and this is where we see the cyberbullying, where people are their friends have outed them and they were not ready to come out, and that itself is trauma, creates trauma, and this is where we have found people who are suicidal because how will they face people and things like that. But there will be, I think, gradually. And as we have said in the beginning, if the state and the civil society community organizations, if we do work together on this, I think many more people will live their lives as human beings without their rights being violated at every step.
Chris, how many years did it take you to actually feel that you were safe in the knowledge that you can now come out?
I think probably about 10 to 15 years, yeah. So it took many years, and I was able to get like support through doctors and through therapy like towards the end, but it took more than 10 years for me internally to like come to terms with my sexual orientation.
So if let's say there's somebody watching at home tonight who's going through something similar internally in isolation, what would you tell them right now?
Well, I like to tell them that you are not alone, that there are people out there who are willing to provide the support to you once you're ready, and that you have all your human rights. It's just that there's like discrimination and bullying happening, and it's like up to you to like hang in there and seek out the support that you need, and there is support, and once you're ready, we'll welcome you with open arms. Yeah.
And I would also say people should call the crisis center if they don't have a number, and 331-3300, and we'll do the appropriate referral to people, because otherwise you can get hurt quite badly if you referred to people who actually can say, let's pray and get the devil out of you kind of thing.
It's happened. I mean, they do voodoo, black magic.
Yes.
We're not just talking about we're not just talking about going to church or going to the mandir and praying about it, but they take you out into
to get the devil out of you. Definitely.
The 2013 Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the recognition given to people with different sexual orientation and gender identity. For you personally, that must have been profound recognition. You and for others, is it a confidence boost?
Well, that wasn't the first time it was put in there. Like in the 1997 Constitution itself, there was sexual orientation. That was one of the grounds for non-discrimination. So that has been there for a while. And even though that in the 2013 Constitution, there is explicit reference to sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression in the Bill of Rights. But then there is also the drawback, the clawback in terms of the rights, because those rights are limited when it comes to marriage, adoption, inheritance. So the principles of non-discrimination and equality do not apply there, because those rights are limited.
So we've taken a step forward, but we haven't reached the finishing line
yet. The complete circle. And that's what people seem to be when we're talking about even CEDAW. and things like that, And I remember in Tonga there's a raging debate around SIDO, and then they're saying that SIDO will allow same-sex marriage and things like that. People are really scared of same-sex marriage. But I believe one step at a time, we've achieved a lot, and eventually, that will be another area of advocacy and lobbying that I'm sure is essential for us to come full circle and actually remove all discrimination and things like that.
Maybe not in our lifetime, but there may come a time. I don't know whether I would live to see the day, but
yeah, I want to see it in my lifetime. I'm sure you
as much as we would want
to. But
yes.
that is another thing to do. But I also want to say another thing is that the feminist women's movement has provided an environment conducive for people coming out as LGBTQI. So you needed that environment where there was I don't call it tolerance, because it's not about it. It's about accepting, advocating, and lobbying around that, for other rights and where other people can come in. And I think that's the space that the LGBTQI community has found. And and for the feminist women's movement, for us, they're always, as everybody else, without any discrimination, part and parcel of that movement.
And just very quickly, as we wrap it up, my personal view is that because of the space that's been created now and the discussions that are going on, we are moving towards a time when it's okay, as you said, to talk about same-sex marriage, because what we're seeing now is a gradual change in mindset. People's views are shifting, slowly albeit, through the Constitution, through the work of the NGO and CSO communities, and even with the policy that the Ministry of Education has adopted. So if all of this comes together, there is a meeting point, and that may very well be a time when we can broach this issue of same-sex marriage. I mean, we're talking about right now, but there could very well be somebody tomorrow saying, I'm not very happy with what you were talking about on television. We're not ready for it. It's not in our religion, or it's not in our beliefs. There is still that train of thought.
Yep.
Definitely. You'll get it tomorrow.
Well, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But
there can be some very good things also coming out of that.
Yeah. If the Prime Minister has himself said that all Fijians are equal no matter who they are or where they're from, so what about those Fijians who love other people? So, I mean, if you're working towards a Fiji where everyone's equal without any restrictions, so like those principles of equality and non-discrimination to be applied to everyone, no matter who they are, where they're from, and who they love.
All right. And on that note, thank you very much for being on the show. Shamima, thank you very much. And to you, Chris. That was For the Record for tonight. Remember, if you have any comments or questions, you can email us fortherecord@fbc.com.fj. We'll be back again next Sunday. Good night.